book Incognito by David Eagleman brings up several ideas that had not crossed my mind until I was exposed to them. Throughout the book, he weaves these together to reach several conclusions that made me pause and question my free will. In Chapter 6, he reaches a conclusion, stating that our biology and our decision-making is inseparable. This comes with many implications, but before that, I will mention some evidence he used to come to this conclusion. I will divide prominent examples into two categories. First, we have the zombie systems. Here we have examples such as Kenneth's homicidal somnambulism, in which a sleeping man was able to unconsciously drive out of his way and commit a murder. We also have the uncontrollable actions of conscious people, such as those with Tourette's and alien hand syndrome. These examples serve to say that the sophistication of the action is not an indication of free will, and that we are not independent of our biology. Next, we move to the stowaway. Here we have a collection of tasks, such as Baccarat's card selection task, which showed that we do not need conscious knowledge to make an advantageous decision. We have Libet's finger task, which shows that the brain activity begins to rise over a second before participants feel an urge to move. And we also have the retrospective fabrication story experiment, which shows that our minds create stories to explain the actions and behaviors our bodies have exhibited. These examples are used to show that our conscious actions are byproducts of unconscious brain activity. And if consciousness is the last in making decisions, where does that leave free will? I like the implications of the research Eagleman brings up and how it can be applied to address the culpability and changing the duration of someone's sentencing based on their modifiability instead of their blameworthiness. However, I believe it is a weakness to define our behavior as biological without exploring a social and emotional aspect more thoroughly. Here, I can think of two examples. First, in Incognito, Eagleman mentions the shift of the mind problem becoming a brain problem, as effectiveness in pharmaceuticals increased. While I understand the medication can help those who need it, there are programs that exist, like in Lapland, which showed an 81% recovery rate from 1992 to 1997, with only 35% of participants using antipsychotics during their open dialogue approach. Second, in episode 2 of The Mind, Eagleman describes the demand of drug and possibly solution to drug addiction to be in the brain. However, Brainwashed by Sattel and Lilienfeld shared with us a commonality in the reasoning behind why people use drugs, which the brain disorder perspective does not address. This is the incentive of the drug numbing their emotional pain. They even go as far as to quote David Eagleman's analogy of drug addiction being like pneumonia, that both can have a medical solution. But interestingly enough, his approach to the solution in How Do I Decide was in line with theirs, providing his participant with tools to change their thoughts and behaviors in an attempt to align herself with who she wants to be. But do we have a choice in who we want to be? What is the relationship between being given the tools and exercising free will, if we have it, to use them? If our behavior is the product of our biology, how does it decide, when all things are considered equal, to use some tools over the others? While I agree that there are many limits imposed on us by our biology, there is still room for debate on the question of free will. Here, we run on the assumption that our willingness to be modified and change our behavior is not free will, and that it cannot exist in the subconscious. Research on free will, such as Dr. Pasquale Leon's reinforces the notion that there is nothing measurable that we can ascribe as free will, but there is still questions to be asked. For example, while simulating a participant's brain in attempt to make them change their mind, does the participant lose the ability to raise the other hand? If yelling "stop" can sometimes get the alien hand to stop, is it possible to give other commands such as "grab that apple"? How much freedom is required from free will? Galatians chapter 5 verse 13 says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh, rather serve one another humbly in love, and that is free enough for me."